100% sales on it.
Can you hear me? Need to raise it a little bit for the microphones now. Can you hear me? I've never been accused of not being heard. So, welcome. We are so glad that you are here. Today, of course, I always want to focus on you and what you're needing, and this is something that you asked to have on the feedback forms last year. And so we've organized this today. We do not, our accountant did not get to come, but I have my personal accountant came for the class today, and so she will answer questions as we go. But just want to welcome you. I'm so glad you're here. And is it on? No, I'm talking about the. There we go. What did I miss?
Handing out a piece of stuff. Sure. Technical difficulties. It worked just a minute ago today. Huh. I don't know. I'll just be your clicker back here again.
Okay. Sorry.
Where do you want to go?
Well, today is national, or this coming is, I think it's later on in October, but it's National Chocolate Day. How many of you love chocolate? So we were able to sit here for you, get a little piece of candy, and if you like something next to you better, there's nobody there, you can take that. But there's some benefits. I thought it was very interesting about heart circulation, brain support, mood and stress relief, bone health, blood sugar balance, and tips for seniors. Choose dark chocolate with minimal added sugar and enjoy a small square or two a day. Okay, so it's, now if you get it where you push it and the caramel squeezes out, that's probably a little more sugar than you need, but they're sure good, right? But this is dark chocolate, and I just thought it was a fun thing for you to have, to read, and maybe even justify eating chocolate to your family. We are going to have our welcome by Frances Tuttle. Come on down. And of course, we all love Casey. She's spunky, she's wonderful, and we appreciate the community here having us. We love Frances Tuttle.
Good morning. Welcome to Frances Tuttle. If you have not been on our campus, and we are so thankful that you're here today. We are knee-deep in our fall semester, and in fact, all of our students have fall break this Thursday and Friday, so the campus will be nice and quiet, and they'll get a nice little break, and then we'll steamroll right on into Christmas. I wanted to highlight one thing that we're doing at Frances Tuttle today, because I think it might be something that you guys might be interested in. We are hosting a whole slew of Saturdays are for kids events, and any kid can come, but they have to bring somebody with them. And I thought to myself, when I was young, my grandmother and my mom used to bake with me all the time, and so there's several of these events that we're doing end of October, leading into November, and on into December. So if you have questions and you're interested in that, maybe you want to bring a grandchild and come on a Saturday and learn how to bake this one's a bake to pie perfection. And you come into our culinary area at our Rockwell campus, and you get to bake an entire pie with your grandchild or your child maybe even. So
That's what I was just going to ask you, Casey. Is it at every location, or do they need to really read the fine print?
These particular ones are at the Rockwell location because we have the culinary out there. But there's a lot of things that you can find on our website. I'll try to make a little flyer next time and have a QR code that'll take you right to it. But if you have questions, you can ask me. The easiest way to enroll for these kinds of events is to really honestly just call our number and tell somebody you want to enroll in a class. But we're trying to do all kinds of things like that leading into Christmas. So if you want to learn how to bake a pie, we've got something for you. If you want to learn how to do Bavarian cream, there's all kinds of great things leading into the holidays. So if you're interested, come find me later. I'll be your office.
What is a child? What age?
So I have learned that in this class, it can be anywhere all the way up to high school. So they have young kids, and then they've had middle school kids, and they've had high school kids. Personally, I would go with my grandma and I would say I was a kid. So you can, but this particular class is geared towards you and someone younger than you. So if you're interested, let me know and I can show you the different types that we have. And just one of the things that we're doing to try to reach out to people. I mean, obviously, most of what we do is for high school students and people who are learning trades. But we also have sewing. I think I saw someone that was like, if you want to learn how to make stockings for Christmas, there's a sewing class for that. You have to bring your own sewing machine, so I'm out on that. I don't even know how to sew, so I think I'm out. But there's lots of great stuff on there. So we appreciate you guys being here. Welcome to Francis Tuttle.
Thank you. That is awesome. Well, we're going to move on to our spotlight. Sponsor spotlight today is with St. Anne's, which is one of our sponsors, which we love all of our sponsors. And throughout the year, you've got to hear from each of our sponsors. What they do, what they provide for you, and of course, before and after, you are more than welcome to go to the tables, talk with them specifically about what they are offering and what they do. But today, our spotlight is with Francis Tuttle and Richard. And I'm going to hand you the microphone, and I'm going to hand you
We'll try to get it to work.
I can raise my hand and then that'll be a
That's great.
signal.
I was gonna
How's
say,
that?
it was working earlier, but we are a tech school, so there you go. I'll be your clicker.
Oh, wonderful. I'll just raise my hand and click it, okay? My name is Richard Amond, A-M-E-N-D. Most people just say amen when they talk to me. I'm from St. Anne Independent and Assisted Living. You can see our sign out in front. We are a ministry of the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City. That means we're owned and operated by the Catholic Church. But we have all different denominations that live in our beautiful community. We're in Northwest Oklahoma City. You can see that we have a life of vitality in our community. We're not a buy-in, we're month to month. And everyone is welcome in our community. We have 9 independent living size apartments, and we have 2 assisted living plans, floor plans. And right across the street is a nursing home and a skilled nursing. It has the same name, St. Anne, but we don't own it anymore. But it's right there if people need it. I raise my hand. You see our outside building, our aerial view. The 3-story building on the right is all independent living, and assisted living is on the other end. And we have a beautiful grand theater and a beautiful chapel that connect both. You can see the front of our building, and of course at night is very special with the lighting that we have. 134 apartments in independent and 36 in assisted. And we'll go to the next slide. People choose St. Anne Independent and Assisted Living because, and I'll just touch on a few of them up there, we are fun and friendly. If you come, you notice that with our community. We have more levels of care now in our assisted living, 3 different levels of care. So we take care of medication, bathing, dressing, cognitive reminders, escorts and meals and activities, some incontinence care, some lift assistance. And so we're pleased to have that. Our meals are wonderful, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. All your meals in assisted living, all your meals except Sunday night in independent living. As we mentioned, we're warm and welcoming. We have numerous activities, outings, and things to do all the time. And we have an outstanding history of regulatory compliance. And now we are pet friendly. So we have dogs, cats, we have 1 bird, and I think we have fish somewhere, maybe. But we have a dog run that we built, which is a lot of fun. On the next one, you see our beautiful chapel, St. Joachim Chapel. So we have Mass every day with retired priests, and then we also have all faith services of all kinds, Bible studies, spiritual outings, and events. Wonderful. Next one is respite care. In our assisted living, we have a couple of apartments that are respite care. You can come and stay for 30 days, and it would include all levels of our care, excuse me, in that stay. And so minimum of 30 days, and you can come. If you're a caregiver and you need a break from the person you're caring for, they can come and be with us for a short time. Or if they just want to try out St. Anne's. If you go to the next one, you see our priorities, which are safety, satisfaction, high ethical standards, stewardship of our events. Thank you. That's a margarita. Wow. And then we have a lot of fun, which you'll see on the next slide. This was a 4th of July celebration with our 106-year-old Uncle Sam. He lived at St. Anne's, and he lived to be about 108. We have several centenarians that live there, and they're vibrant and they're exciting. So 4th of July, on the next one, we show a luau celebration at St. Anne's with Mai Tais. They drink a lot of Mai Tais, and then they go to the chapel and go to confession afterwards. No. Anyway, we have a lot of fun with that. On the next one, King and Queen crowning at our Mardi Gras celebration. And you can see the happiness on the people, the excitement. But the next one is really something. It is our volleyball tournament. Independent against assisted living. And they are the hot shots in independent living and the awesome angels in assisted living. This shows assisted living winning that game, and they were not awesome angels that day, let me tell you. But we have a trophy that goes back and forth. We love our veterans. You can see our veterans on this. We have 20 veterans that pass the torch to each other to open ceremonies when we had the Olympics. And it ended with our 101-year-old who was a Rosie the Riveter in World War II. The women that worked in factories and shipyards during World War II, she was one of those women, and she lit the cauldron at the end of it. So we love our veterans. You also see a Catholic nun there. That is Sister Sylvia. The Carmelite sisters live with us. They used to be down at Villa Teresa, if anybody had heard of Villa Teresa, and they came and built their convent on our property. So we're blessed to have them. And Christmas is always so much fun. I am Santa Claus, so I'm working on it right now with my beard, growing it out. And Lisa, my co-worker, is Mrs. Claus. We have wonderful time with that. And then on the next page, you'll see Archbishop Beltran driving a convertible with all the staff members. So fun, fun, fun. Christmas is wonderful. And I will close with a story. We've noticed that there's a lot of people that leave churches sometimes, but they come back in their elder years. And the big question was, why are they coming back to church? And the answer I heard was, they are cramming for their finals. Isn't that something? Cramming for their finals, because they want to get to heaven, of course. And so we want to be a part of helping that. Happiness, you cannot buy happiness, but we hope and pray that living at St. Anne's is the very next thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to just hand each of you a microphone. Now we're moving on to our fabulous panel that's here. We are missing, like I said, we're missing our CPA, but where there's a will, there's a way. And so Cheryl doesn't want to sit up here with us, but she will answer any of your questions. She's been a CPA for how long? A long time. So she's wealth of knowledge and just going to direct us through this. We're going to talk, the first question, you have the questions in front of you. So you can take notes on that sheet, and we're just going to have a discussion. We would like for you to jot down a question. If you have a question, please jot it down, and we'll break at like 5 till 11 or 11 o'clock-ish, and we'll go on to your questions. Okay, but let's see if we don't answer them, that we welcome your questions, of course. So, but I think it works. Is something ringing? Test, test, test. good. Well, first thing that we want to discuss with each of our panelists, which I'm going to let Linda introduce herself, and we'll move to Levi, and then we'll move on to Bria. I think that they need to tell you their expertise, why we asked them to be a part of here. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Linda.
Okay, well, my name is Linda Sargent, and if I could have, I would have married a general. But I found a sergeant, so that's a very easy way for you to remember. What I do, I'm with Directors Life Assurance Company here in Oklahoma City. And we are a company that specializes in prearranging funeral services. And I want you to underline F-U-N, fun. Because this is not a sad thing to discuss. It is not any different than an advance directive. So we will uplift our conversation regarding all of this. Think of me as the individual who knows all the local family funeral homes here in our community, across our state, and I help folks find the perfect place and the best relationship between funeral director and themselves and the family. And then we can work out our plans in advance. I like to say in advance of all those tears sometimes, and make it a very pleasant experience. And so that's what I do. I help folks plan their final arrangements, whether it be cremation or funeral services, and we use a life insurance policy or an annuity policy to fund that prearrangement. And I've been trying to figure out this business since 1988. So I haven't figured it out yet, so I'm still working. Yes, I'm still working, so is that give you enough info?
Thank you. Levi.
She's not going to make it easy for me to follow up on. My name is Levi Wade. I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm a founding partner for True Harvest Wealth Management. And we basically work with families to help them manage their wealth. And that's a pretty big topic. It covers everything from managing risk that we might face, whether it's risk from our investments or risk from changes that may come in our life, to also helping us ultimately reach purpose and reach the objectives that we have for ourselves. Most of us work really hard to acquire assets in our life and to acquire things, but those things are just things. At the end of the day, it's what those things do that matters the most. And so we just sit with families. We help them get an assessment of their current financial position. We help them make decisions and provide them maybe insights as to things they might need to consider when they're looking at something like, as an example, changing their living arrangements, making a choice to move into a community, or maybe just downsize their home, move in with their kids. There's lots of solutions or decisions that retirees may face. And we just sit down with them to help them not only think through the things they may not have considered, but to help them evaluate what's really most important so that hopefully we get to the end objective that we're searching for. Now, part of that is the math. There's real numbers that need to be done to figure that out. What does that look like? Can I afford that? Is it an option? What changes am I going to have to make? But we really need to make sure we're getting a good assessment of what the purpose is that we're trying to achieve, right? And that is at the heart of what we really do, is to help people figure out and evaluate those things that are so important to them to make sure they get the actual outcome they're looking for. Because a lot of times our perception might be different than reality, and so you can say I have a little bit of experience in doing that. I've spent 20 years in the business, so I started in 2005. I do have a finance degree from the University of Oklahoma. Hopefully it's not offensive to too many people in the room, but my wife also happens to be a CPA. So this is a subject that I've spent pretty much my entire working life working with individual families and trying to help them make those decisions.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Bria Winston.
Hi, my name is Bria Winston, and I am a partner at the law firm Baltimore Slow, and I am an estate planning attorney. So my entire career, I've been practicing for about 15 years, and all I've done my entire time out of law school is estate planning. So that is wills, trusts, powers of attorney, but that also includes tax planning, some Medicaid concerns, special needs planning, charitable planning, and just kind of helping you organize all of your assets and make sure that everything's good to go if you are incapacitated, or after you pass away, just making sure that everything runs smoothly and we avoid the court system as much as possible. I am an attorney that hates being in the courtroom, and so I love to help people avoid that as well. So it's not really a fun place to be.
And it takes longer, right, if you go that way, route sometimes?
It's pure chaos.
Yes, yes.
It takes a lot longer. It is extremely public, so your privacy is really invaded, and it's a lot more expensive.
So, Bree, we'll just start with you. Our first question here talks about what professional, okay, when should they contact their attorney at the end of the year? Is that a good time to review if they do have a trust, if they do have a will, if they, making sure that they have, I mean, what kind of documents do they need to?
So I would suggest reviewing with your attorney your estate plan every 1 to 2 years. And sometimes the end of the year is a really good time because if there are new tax laws coming into effect, we can judge that and see if we need to make any tweaks or changes considering any new laws that might happen. It's also a great time to think about charitable planning because the end of the year is a really nice time. You're kind of figuring out your tax liabilities. And so we can maybe help minimize that if we have some advanced planning in place. But as a general rule, the documents that you need for your estate plan are likely a trust. Sometimes a trust isn't necessary, but honestly in Oklahoma, it is 95% of the time more helpful and kind of necessary to help you stay out of the court system and help make sure that everything runs, everything is private with your family. And then we also need to make sure that you have your incapacity documents in place. And that's something that I'm actually really passionate about because I care if your stuff goes to the right people, and I care if it goes in the right way, the way that you wish, but I really care about you as my clients. And your incapacity documents are very, very important. So powers of attorney for property and for healthcare, and then that advance directive. If we have those in place, then if you become incapacitated, if you need help, then we have the people already on deck and they already have the power to help you. And we can avoid the court system to appoint a guardian for you, because that is a really cumbersome process that delays you being able to get the help that you need. And I feel very passionate about making sure that those documents are up to date and have the right people in them, and they are robust enough to cover everything that you might need to have covered.
Okay, great. Levi, let's just go ahead and move your direction about important documents for year end, maybe to check in with you.
Yeah, I think, before you go meet with your accountant, you're going to need all your financial paperwork. So whether it's a copy of your Social Security statement that you're receiving, a copy of your investment statement, any 1099s that you might have received, right? Any charitable receipts or contributions you may have given throughout the year. I'm sure at this point in your lives you've been through enough tax filings or whatnot, you kind of have a pretty good preparation on those things that you need. There's always something new that comes up. But I'm going to echo what my colleague here says and say at the end of the day, I was speaking to a young lady on the way into the building here before this meeting about preparedness being so much more important than reactiveness. And when we're prepared for a problem, when we're proactive about it before we ever get to it, the outcome is generally better, but most importantly, it's far less chaotic. And chaos creates a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety, and that puts a lot of strain on ourselves as well as our loved ones and people around us. So I think it's important that you meet with your attorney, your financial planner, and those people before the end of the year. Accountants can be hard to get on the calendar for because we have October 15th filing for a lot of them.
Yes.
And so we kind of got to squeeze in between October and December into their calendars, but a little preparedness earlier in the year to make that happen can go a long ways in making sure that we are making adjustments before December 31st. Because you can't rewind time, so after December 31st, the fiscal calendar closes for the average tax filer, and there's not a whole lot you can do post that event. And so it's good to do it ahead of time. The good news is you head into the year prepared to talk about goals and things that you have, rather than sometimes doing it after the first of the year and trying to figure that out. So I would say just get all your financial statements together, make sure you have those tax receipts and those other documents when it comes to meeting with like your tax account payroll, reviewing your financial advisor, any changes you may have made to your trust, for example, or your legal documents, beneficiaries, homeowners, things of that nature. And again, we set a goal somewhere around October to December to kind of have that meeting and make those things happen. It will flow pretty easy for you.
Okay, so Linda, yours is a little different as far as year end. It doesn't necessarily need to be at year end. However, what I'm going to dovetail into this about why it would be important to contact you and maybe get information from you about pre-planning is because all of us, what sticks out to me is also in the holidays, who are you with? Family, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people say, well, isn't that I don't want to be a downer, with my family, but how often do we get with our family? And so I think you can make it a more positive thing, say, when I do my downsizers club and talk about different things about downsizing, it's really a good time to inform. You're not asking your kids for permission. You're telling with them and you're sharing with them what you discussed and what you've come about. And I think the more information you have, it's a great, because as far as what you offer with the pre-planning of our last needs, is I can only say for my own family, it is a great gift that you're giving your adult children. It's a great gift that you're giving them because when they're losing you, the physical you, we never lose you because we have memories, right? But we lose that physical loved one. They get to grieve. They get to go through that process. They don't have to go in and fill out a bunch of paperwork.
Well, I'm going to offer something different this time for you all to consider. Your holiday time is when you are with your family, but never before are funeral services or how we lay someone to rest, it's never before been so much of a time where you can be creative. You can be creative. It doesn't necessarily have to be faith-based. You might decide that you want to send everybody off for a trip. And you can make financial plans using an insurance product for that, if you would like. So you decide how your family enjoys spending time together, and that can be part of the ceremony, or grateful gathering as we like to call it. I have lots of folks who decide on being laid to rest with the act and the process of cremation. But they also set aside funds for a trip for their family or a meal with their family. So it doesn't always have to be considered a faith-based experience, but someone's going to have to pay for you to be taken care of. Most of the time, kids don't want to hear it. Right? I don't want my mother to talk to me about it, and I've been doing it all these years. I worked with my dad, and he would say, now Linda, this is what I would like. And I'd say, well, I really don't want to talk about this right now, Dad. But
how will you know what they want?
Yes.
How do you know what they want?
Because he communicated.
Yes.
So you need to communicate. If you learn one thing today, and that is you communicate with your spouse and with your children or your best buddy how you want to be taken care of, and you choose a funeral home. Choose a funeral home, and it starts with gathering all the information that is needed at that particular time. Does that kind of help?
I think out of the box, exactly.
You can think
Not
outside the
necessarily
box.
planning my funeral, I'd
Yes.
like to do this or that.
Yeah, I wanna do something that's kind of
Great
creative.
idea, yeah.
Is that gonna help everybody? With the show? Yeah.
Okay, great. And I'm just going to just take a mic over to Cheryl, just to kind of piggyback on what Levi said. Important documents to kind of gather at the end of the year that can give their CPA. Important things that they can write off that we don't know about.
Well, normally your CPA probably seems to organize. And that's a good place to start with your documents. You want to get together all your social security, 1099s, your 1099Rs, or your required minimum distributions from your 401ks or IRAs, and anything that's happened during the year that's unusual. Your brokerage statements, so that you have gain or loss on stocks and investments. And just let them know of anything that may be unusual that might have occurred during this year. Maybe you sold a piece of real estate. You know, maybe your mother died. Maybe one of your children passed away, or something along that line. But just let them know everything that happened during the last year for you, and that will keep them into anything else that they might need in the documents.
So asking for an informational packet.
Yes.
If they have it, because then hopefully everything's listed in there and it triggers your mind, oh, I do need to go see what my bank statement said, or collect that, or whatever. Perfect, thank you so much. Yes, very good. So, moving on to the next question, what life changes can happen during the year, which would be another reason, like you said, to review it every other year, like every 2 years or something like that. But what kind of things can happen that would need us to contact you this year, for example? Let's start with, I don't think that doesn't pertain to you, really, does it? Well, let's
It's all right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you need to check your beneficiary
Yes.
designations.
Okay, so we'll start with you. Go ahead, Linda.
I would say you need to check your, for life insurance or your bank accounts, you need to check your beneficiary designations. So if someone who is designated as a beneficiary passes on, or a relationship in your life changes, check those beneficiary designations.
Very good, yes. Things happen, things change. Levi?
I think a lot about this question. We try to have an annual review with our clients every single year. Obviously, we're managing their financial resources, and so we need to review what's going on in their life to make sure we make appropriate adjustments to their investments should we need to. And some of that's existential. Some of those things that happen that might change our view on what we're doing with our money are outside of the walls of our own home. So everything may be fine in our life, but we may have had a change in our family's makeup. We could have divorce, a birth of a new child, a circumstance which changed, a family member who got sick, all kinds of circumstances that for us to be aware of simply help us know about the things that you're thinking about, the things that may be weighing on you, you may want to make some decisions over. There's obviously things that happen in your own life. There's the individual idea that, 10 years ago my favorite song is different from my favorite song today, so maybe I do want to do a review of what my party plan is after I pass away, so to speak, and make sure that I'm having things done the way that I want. But at the end of the day, a lot of things that we go through, there's a process of evaluation and determination, and once we kind of narrow those down, it's more about a maintenance process of adjusting them. And I would say that in my experience, people go 3 to 5 years without having any really big changes in their life, but somewhere within that 3rd to 5 year, life starts to turn in some weird way. And again, it might have to do with our health, it might have to do with family member circumstance, or what the case may be. And again, being prepared by having those smaller conversations ahead of time helps us know exactly where to jump in rather than having to swallow the elephant all at one time, right? Take the bite at one bite at a time. So my advice there would just be, again, having the conversation, which I think is something that you guys are already privy to doing because you're here, right? But having that conversation with people is extremely valuable and important. I love what Connie says, we're not necessarily always asking our family for permission for the things we want to do, we're telling them what it is that we want. But I also think there's a place for it to be a conversation, a chance to say, make this work for the betterment of our family, because there's some generational planning that can happen if we are actually thinking from that perspective. It can be hugely valuable. And so, yeah, that would be my thoughts.
Perfect, perfect.
From my perspective, I just kind of want to echo everything that has already been said. If you have changed family circumstances, most of the time with your estate planning, if it's done correctly, your estate plan can weather a lot of changes. And so I have a lot of clients that come in and say, I have a new grandchild, or there was a divorce in the family, something like that, and they are pleasantly surprised to hear, oh, we don't have to actually do anything because we accounted for that possibility. But just make sure. Make sure that your plan still works with your new family circumstances. Sometimes I have clients that decide now their children are grown, they've taken care of their children, and their children are successful and they're off doing their own thing. So maybe we don't have to leave everything to them, and we can provide for the grandchildren in some way, provide for a charity in some way. And so just having those conversations. And to echo what Linda said, making sure that your assets are handled in the way that they're supposed to be handled. So making sure that everything's actually titled the way that it's supposed to be titled. That's usually where we have some changes. And that's one of the big reasons why a review every couple of years is important. Because you might have moved and we need to make sure that your home is in your trust. Or there might be a circumstance where a child has some sort of financial issue or drug abuse or mental health issue, and we need to update the beneficiaries on your retirement accounts. And to account for that, we need to make sure that that child's protected, or making sure that we are providing for the charities that we want to provide for in a tax efficient way. We talk a lot about taxes with respect to your retirement accounts because they're a whole different animal, and there's a lot of creative things that you can do with them. But that requires the conversations, and that requires making sure that we're actually looking at them, and making sure that we're having those conversations about new vehicles, new bank accounts. If you are an entrepreneur and you tend to buy and sell rental properties or open LLCs, or you go out on a whim and you want to make an investment of some sort, we need to know about that so that we can make sure that it's accounted for in your estate plan.
And just to piggyback on that, it's very important. It's not a huge thing, but is it important to them if one of the spouses passes and the home is in a trust and both of their names are on it? How important is it to maybe take the deceased person off, or is it that big a deal? I mean, it'll happen when they sell the home.
If one of the spouses, if I have a couple that are clients and one of the spouses passes away, that's a really good time to, after you've finished with the grieving process, you've kind of got your head on a little bit better, coming in and just having that conversation, what needs to change, because that is when we look at assets. So we need to make sure that we get with your financial advisor and the retirement accounts are transferred over to you appropriately. Make sure that we actually called all of the life insurance policy carriers and got that process taken care of, and then looking at the home and looking at your plan to see if there's anything that we need to do. It's helpful to have your home in the trust, because when one spouse passes, there's really not anything you have to do if it's actually in the trust. If it's not in the trust and you own it, just the two of you, there is some planning that we need to do. And yes, when you sell it, you could clean that up, but it's helpful to clean it up beforehand so that you don't have that delay and you don't have that confusion, because I love title companies, they're great, but they say that there's a title issue about 48 hours before the sale is supposed to happen. And that's not a lot of time. We end up having to scramble, and so making sure that we clean that up beforehand is really helpful.
And because of my learning, that's one of the questions that I have my team ask is, do you have a trust? Is the home in a trust? Because we like to give the title company a heads up. They're going to need to bring their death certificate. And we explain all that to you at that time. If they're still on there, we have to do that. Another thing that I just want to point out, a big change that can happen, especially this time in our life, is a health change. And if you're living in an independent, and you or your spouse needs more help, and you're more than bringing in, like we have, of course, right at home, they're welcome to come in and they help you with different things like that. But if they have to make a move into an assisted living situation, into a memory care situation, you need to contact your financial advisor at that point so that they can kind of shift how the money's, because more is going to have to be given each month, correct?
Yeah, I would say there's two aspects that need to happen at the time when a client's health begins to deteriorate. And it really kind of depends on the nature of the health deterioration, what might dictate some of what we're able to do and not do. But one is we need to review your powers of attorney and who's going to be making decisions for you. And again, we've done our jobs right in the first place. We've gone and went to the attorney, we have all that paperwork, we've made those decisions, and we're just simply be reviewing those so that everybody's on the same page. That reduces any anxiety or frustration or concerns a family may have. I could have known you for 20 years, my entire career, you've been my client. I can even have your kids as my clients, and I cannot take direction from your children if I do not have a legal document to do so. The custodian, which actually holds your account, will not make the distribution if it does not come from an authorized party. And that doesn't just include the distribution of assets, it includes the changing of assets, to move assets in a more conservative position, or to maybe apply for benefit on a particular policy. If you had a policy sitting to the side that was going to kick in at that time to help, we need to make sure we have those documents in place and that we've reviewed them preferably so that we have them on record and can immediately go into action. There's maybe some topics we'll talk about later to address that, but I think one other thing I would bring up too that I find oftentimes for my clients who are early retirees or maybe that mid-retiree is inheritance. A lot of times they will have a family member pass away and inherit something. A very common example in Oklahoma might be an oil royalty or land rights to a piece of land that the family's splitting between the 3 siblings. And that's certainly something you can call your estate planner on and say, hey, how do I make sure that's included in my plan, represented correctly? What do I look at on the title? So that's another one you might keep in the back of your mind. It's not just about necessarily the negative things that happen. Sometimes there are positive things in our life. The sale of a business, for example, things of that nature, maybe an inheritance that was given to us by rich uncle. I need one, by the way. You know anybody? But I would say at the end of the day, yeah, exactly, we'll share. I would say having those conversations ahead of time makes a really big difference. And again, when cognitive impairment specifically starts to come into play, it becomes more challenging because you can't get those legal documents at that time. And there are, luckily, for people who are aging, and I'm not going to say elderly because, again, some of you are very young in your lifeline, the reality is there are a lot of laws that are intended to protect you that very well can also make it very hard for the system to help you when you do have people that are working in your best interest, because there are certain things they have to be able to do. And so this is a place where, again, preparedness is going to reduce stress and anxiety, and almost always going to result in a better outcome for everyone involved in the circumstance. And I'm sure everyone in this room has dealt with the loss of a loved one. And in some cases, that went really smooth, and in some cases, it's a fight and funeral home, right? And so there's a lot of areas of our life that are under stress and tension with people we love are going through something difficult. It's very hard for us to know how to solve that problem. But when we've left instructions for people, it really helps. It actually gives them an opportunity to honor you in the way that they want. I'm sure everyone here wants to honor the people that they love. It makes a really big difference when I know exactly how I can honor my father or my mother to care for them and provide for them. And so these things are actually positive conversations. Again, they don't necessarily mean you want to talk around turkey, but that is a good time because everybody's in town, everybody's there. It's a good time to have conversations, and then probably have some questions about how we do that later on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we've answered some of those other questions while they were talking with you. They mentioned about beneficiaries, checking things like that. Very, very important. We're going to skip on to the back of that page where it says, how can families approach sensitive conversations about end-of-life wishes in a caring way during the holidays or the year-end review? And I really want to just highlight what you said before, is that topic about end of life.
Not being around anymore. That's the way I say it.
Yeah, not being around anymore, that you have those other options. So many of them, they think you're gonna talk to them about what kind of casket you want, what kind of, they may be thinking things like that, whereas the conversation really is a different conversation.
Well,
When they pre-plan.
I think you have to think of your kids and your friends and determine what is going to provide them with the most comfort when you're not there. I have a very good friend, and he wanted to go ahead and do his advanced planning. And he came all by himself because he's getting ready to have a knee replacement. His wife had experienced her father's passing, and it was a very emotional time for her. He had experienced a tradition in his family where his parents and his aunts had prearranged their services as well as paid for it in advance with a particular funeral home. So that was his family's tradition, and he said, it made it really easy for me. He came all by himself, which is unusual for a man. It's usually the ladies are the ones who will do this sort of thing.
They want the security and
They want,
knowing
yes,
how things are going to be.
everything's gonna go. So I said to him, he goes, well, this is kind of what I'm thinking, Linda, and I just want the simple, active cremation, and they can figure out where to place me later. And I said, well, that's fine. I can certainly help you with that, and it's very affordable. And I said, but John, do you remember how Ann was with her daddy? And he said, oh yeah. And her sister and mom, and he said, oh yeah, I do. And I said, and your boys? They were they're in their 30s. And I said, do you remember how emotional everyone was? And he said, yeah, I do. And I said, why do you think that just having a simple cremation and then going over to the funeral home is going to be comforting to them? And he stopped and he goes, I said, you're not going to be there to hold their hand. You won't be there to hold their hand and guide them like the Rock of Gibraltar that you were for Ann's dad. And that was a very arresting moment for that
He never thought
dear
of it.
friend.
Never thought of
He
it that
didn't
way.
think of it that way. He was just taking care of
Business.
the business, right? I said, so we can write down, you and the boys love to go to baseball games. Why don't we write down y'all going to a baseball game? And you might want to set aside some extra funds for that. Or talk about having a meal. It is how to push pause, and if I encourage you for anything, it is for you to consider, it's not to spend a lot of money. That's not what is at issue here. What is at issue is how do you provide comfort for your family when you're not there? And by providing comfort, I mean this. Select a funeral home that will support your family both emotionally and financially. Determine what it is that is of importance to you. Comfort means you gather the information that's required for a death certificate, because your kids may not have it, that information. They may not know your mother's maiden name. They may not know where you keep your Social Security number. That provides
I even have
comfort.
people write their own obituary to help a family because they don't want to leave their parents' full name, because that's a historical document, really.
That's right.
Obituary is, very important that you have, the family line.
Right. So are you getting the gist? It's.
And you provide
considered-
documents that are
yes.
easy to fill out.
I can, we fill out all that
A booklet.
information.
It's like a booklet, like the accountant sends a booklet, you provide a booklet of what's needed
That's
for all of that to alleviate that pressure during the emotional time.
Right. And then, you can have that conversation about, because we do know that people spend less money and make better financial decisions. I bet this is true for your business and your business too. We make better decisions when emotions are at rest. So people don't overspend, and then they are not taxed emotionally either. Does that make sense to everybody? So that's why you're here. That's why we're talking to you
Yeah,
about it.
absolutely. Absolutely, because talking about it, that helps, just like what you just said. They're not gonna think of what they need to, get to their account. They get a list. It's the same thing, you get a list of what all has to be done to get the death certificate, to get all the different things. So I think that's just absolutely wonderful. So, I'm going to, I think we've kind of covered, I just want to reach this question. You may or may not have a suggestion for this. What's the safest way for seniors to store and share their financial and legal documents so that a trusted family member or an executor or whatever can access them in an emergency? Bria, we'll start with you.
How to safely store your documents. I think for each client, that's actually different, and that's a conversation that we have. Who are you naming in your documents? How much do we trust them? How much family drama is there? Because that changes my answer. I do have some clients that just have wonderful kids and everybody kumbayas together and there's no problems. With those clients, I absolutely encourage them to go ahead and give their kids copies of the documents. But if we have a more complicated situation, then I would suggest making sure that whoever you've named knows where the documents are. They need to be accessible, they need to be in your home. The one document that we have to have the original of without question is your will. And so that's the one document that I would say needs to be under lock and key. The rest of it, I suggest that it's accessible, because if the original of your trust burns up in a fire, that's okay. It's not ideal, we always want to keep our originals, right? But if it happens, that's okay, a copy is sufficient, and we can work with a copy. I keep digital copies of all of my clients' documents. I tell my clients not to rely on me, but it is something that I care very much about, and so I do keep documents, digital copies, and so I get calls quite a bit for healthcare documents being sent to a hospital, or the kids need the healthcare documents, and so I actually send those myself on a fairly regular basis. The one document that I would say needs to be extremely accessible is if you decide to actually sign a DNR. That is not a typical document that we do with our estate plan, unless the clients, we specifically have the conversation and they say that they want to have a DNR.
Which, go ahead, DNR, it does not resuscitate.
Yes, so it's a do not resuscitate, and it's different than an advance directive. Your advance directive is that traditional document that says, if I'm on hospice, what do I want my treatment to look like? And so that's a typical document. Everybody needs to have that. 18-year-olds need to have that. But that do not resuscitate is intense. That is a document that says, if I code, I don't want CPR done. And so that's the document, if you do decide to sign that, that's the document that you need to have on your person. So in your glove box, making sure that everybody has it. But other than that, I would say just make sure that your family knows where the documents are. To piggyback on something that we were talking about a couple of questions ago, I would suggest reviewing your incapacity documents with your attorney, because there's two ways that they can be drafted. So we can make it so that nobody can step in for you unless you are declared incapacitated. And that provides a lot of comfort for clients, but it also provides roadblocks. Because that means before somebody can step in and help approve trades on your retirement accounts or work with a financial advisor to get your RMDs out, we have to get a doctor to say that you are incapacitated. And that is a big scarlet letter. And that means that you're no longer allowed to function in your finances anymore. There's a kinder way to do that if your documents are effective immediately and we don't require a letter saying that you're incapacitated. That means that your family members can kind of just slip in and help when you need it, but you still retain that autonomy. So if your health declines, I would suggest talking to your attorney about maybe going ahead and just including the kids already, making them a co-trustee with you, because that gives you the flexibility to still have control over what's going on, but your family members are also there to help and support you. So it's a more flexible way.
For example, we had a house for sale, and the family, the two trustees, right, of the trust, went on vacation out of the country. Okay, we got an offer, right? They had to sign everything. They did not have someone that was here that could step in and sign and do it. So sometimes it's not that they're taking your authority away, it's so that your authority is extended for things to continue on here while you're having a great time traveling abroad.
Would the financial power of attorney have taken care of that in that situation, Connie?
Yes.
It would have, wouldn't it?
You're just saying, yes, you're saying they can sign for me on financial legal documents.
There's a couple things I might add on two different fronts here, and maybe write this down. We give our clients these little quotes so they kind of keep it in their minds to help, but every education has tuition. That's a true statement in life. You either pay at the time you're trying to learn, or you can prepare ahead of time. And I think that's the moral of what's being told to you up here, by preparing ahead of time, by having these conversations, having the right things in place. It's going to be less painful, it's going to be less costly, it's going to be less everything. Now, there's some people who might want to do things on their own or take a little less, a little different approach. And what I would say is your financial institution may have some documents that they can make available for decisions to be made. But I am going to tell you that while those are there, consider those a triage. That's a tourniquet to me. That's not an actual solution. You're far better off to go meet and have your actual legal documents prepared, to have the conversations with an estate planner and an attorney. There's two types of claim we really focus on, really three, but for the purpose of this conversation, I'll say two. There's retirement claim, which is how we spend our money when we're alive. There's legacy claim, which is what we do after we're gone. And when we're talking about legacy claim with clients, we're going to send you to someone like Linda and say, you need to have that conversation of what you want your end-of-life provisions to look like.
Yes.
And I would encourage you that families want to honor their loved ones, and so you should be telling them so that they can do that, so that it's part of the grieving process, is to honor your loved ones. And hazard of the trade, we've probably seen, hazard of the trade, we've probably seen everything, right? I had a family member, really, just telling you my own case, right, where we got a family member who got in an argument because one person wanted to play bagpipes, the other one didn't, right? It's like, well, this person supposed to honor their loved one by having these, this amazing grace played on bagpipes as the casket's being carried off, and the other person is like highly offended that they're going to go through this. And I think, this would all be solved if the person just told us how we wanted them to be honored. How do we want them to be remembered? I love the baseball event, right? Like, even if you're a spiritual person, your passing is a celebration. You're held in the right light, right? It's a time to actually be grateful. I always tell clients, don't rob someone of the tears they deserve. It's okay to grieve, it's okay to cry, but we need to know how to honor people in the same process. And so there's two aspects of this we're talking about. I'm very passionate about having your stuff together, and our firm so this is a topic for me. It's like I could probably talk for hours on, so I'll try to sum it up very shortly. But we have technology available to us today that allows us to work quickly, efficiently, and with clear conscious and education when we use it correctly. But we all know there's a hurdle to using technology. right? Like nobody, like, I don't know, you guys, I don't like getting into that, I don't like people changing things on me, I get kind of, you know, when my bank changes the whole portal thing, everyone, I'm frustrated, because I'm like, I don't want to everything's out all over again. But at the same time, that technology can make our lives significantly better. We can pull up our assets and look at them in one place, right? We can have our documents. So a lot of financial institutions will offer this. I'm not going to say we're the only ones, but I will tell you that we have a repository system. It's a digital safe deposit box that our clients can load all their financial documents and all their family documents. And we tell them you can load photographs, you can load a family, your obituary, for example, or your dad's obituary. You can load marriage certificates, birth certificates, titles to properties, all kinds of stuff that you might need or your loved ones might need at the time. And if you have appointed a person in your life to be that person who's going to step in and help you, we can create a login and access to that folder for that person. We can also segregate folders. We can say we want to have this folder because it has the DNR, the Advanced Healthcare Directive, so we have the important immediate medical information or legal documents that might be needed should something happen. And we're going to keep all this other stuff private until we get there. I don't want them to see all this other stuff until the time is right? And so having that conversation and having those documents in place, our office will scan them. Like we will help, if you're a client of ours, we will help you get those documents in place. And we actually go through what we call a curation review, where we review all those documents with you to make sure we understand what they are and to make sure that we've looked at them. And again, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to tell you if your trust is perfect or not, totally acceptable. I'm not saying you need to go talk to our estate planner and have it reviewed and make sure if I notice that document is 7 years old, I'm probably going to say to you about that conversation, right? It's one we need to update.
And it's good that you have a good relationship
Yes.
with the CPA, with the financial advisor,
Yes.
and the attorney,
And
so
we-
that you all make sure they're covered.
Yeah, and even the family, like we,
Yeah.
you know, that person that you're appointing, we oftentimes will call and have a conversation with them. We can
Yeah.
facilitate that discussion. It's not to say that, you know, we can do everything, nobody else in this panel can do it. Everyone on this panel would love to help and do that. But it's just something that our industry happens to offer kind of as a process. So we would get a digital copy of that trust and put it in there. We would make sure we already have those POAs and all those other documents. And again, we would send you a list of here's things you might want to think about that we wouldn't think about. Things like marriage certificates or could be asked at some point in time or mothers may name. It's a great one. A lot of times people don't remember or know exactly what that was. And so birth certificates, all kinds of documents can go in there. And we just live in a world where that's capable. And the hurdle to get there is sometimes learning something new. But again, depending on your professionals you're working with, I really doubt any person on this panel, including Connie or anyone else, would not be willing to help you. I'm sure everyone in the facilities that are here would be willing to say, hey, I don't know that, but I can help you figure that out in order to get there to that place, right? We kind of have a process built around it through some personal experience that they've been in my whole life.
I have one thing I want to caution people about, and that is, he's talking about technology. There are a lot of wills and trusts and forms online. Mr. and Mrs. Google, be very conscientious, cautious, buyer beware. Anytime you consider using an online only with no people intervention of doing any type of legal work online, it's always better to use a professional, attorney, CPA, realtor, instead of Mr. and Mrs. Google. Lots of problems, especially with legal documents, that these folks have to go in and clean up after the fact. So,
Most of the time, they're just not actually effective.
yeah. So you may think you're saving money, but in the long run, you'll spend money, or your family will.
That's a great warning, great thing. You know, we have the AI out there that composes you, that can do a lot of different things. So it's nice to go in one-on-one with somebody, and this is me. I'm gonna help you with this or that. So let's open it up for questions. Yes, sir. Yvonne, can you come, or Terry, someone come help me?
A number of years ago,
Who is it addressed to? The question.
I'm not sure who would be best to
Okay,
answer.
okay.
A number of years ago, I was able to find this form that was really helpful, and it kind of summarized where everything was. Where is my will? Where my insurance policy, long-term disability? Where my and it was in a format that was really very good. It's probably dated now, and I don't know if y'all have a suggestion of any forms that people could fill out that summarizes in one spot where all that information is and give you cues as to what should be included.
Kind of like a checklist,
A checklist or a questionnaire.
a questionnaire and checklist. And you know, we've had, let me just, before I give it to you guys, remember we've had the gift talk to us about where it's all in there. It's in a binder. If you take the gift and you become a member of Villages OKC, or you can pay to do the gift. Linda has a great booklet that has a lot of things like that in it. I think probably both of you have those lists, so.
The document you're referring to is oftentimes referred to as a document inventory form. And
Oh,
oftentimes it's included inside of the estate plan. You might have it towards the back and say, hey, write down where all your documents are so people know, or put them in there. They even have a list of suggested items you want to make sure you have in trust. And I think every one of us, probably our industries, have some type of a list for it. So if there's a will, there's a way. That's what I would say in this topic. There's certainly resources. This may be one area where you go to Google and ask for a list of things you might want to have. It probably could give you some type of a form.
You can
like
even
that.
buy those books on
Yeah.
Amazon.
But I think,
But
yeah.
Russell, a good thing would be just to get their card and say, can I get that booklet?
Yeah, I think the inventory alone helps, but that's not touching on what Linda said, is that you need really to review the documents, to make sure that those documents are still valid and that they're gonna be honored and accepted, because things change. And institutions, we just live in a litigious world, right, so we just gotta make sure everything's in the right place. But there's probably some other things that you may not be thinking about that can be suggested to you when you're talking to Linda, and she's talking about things that are important to you, that she might point out and say, hey, have you ever considered putting that there? And so I think having a more intimate conversation is gonna produce better documentation for you. That's a great question. How do you tell someone where it's at?
Just a good list.
What I was talking about is an inventory in one place that had all that material. You have to go search for everything. Where in the world is this, where is that, where is these various documents, some of which would be in the attorney's office, I guess.
Having a binder or something that everything you need to have together.
Yeah.
At least indicate what are your critical numbers, where is your birth certificate, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we take all that information, put it in digital form, because your house can burn down, get blown away, your family may not know where it's at, you got kids that live out of state, they can't get to it quickly, I can't go enter your house and look through your I love you drawer to find your paperwork, right? I mean, it's better for us to have those there, but there are several programs, the Village has one, and there's several other programs out there that literally take you through this process of making sure you kind of have these things put together.
Passwords,
Right.
everything.
Like passwords, you have a digital fingerprint in your life that we need to be careful to maintain. So I just think you have a conversation with professionals and they'll help you think of the things you wouldn't think of.
So Russell, my suggestion is, on that line, something you'd like to know, write that in that line and we will get that information to you. Okay? And on the feedback page, please, I want to draw your attention to the feedback page. We've got, it's a bright orange, lime yellow. We had to make more copies. So yes, so make sure that you fill that out for us. We appreciate that. Okay, the next question.
This will be a question for Bria. We have not done a trust yet, so to make our time more effective before we visit with the lawyer, is there a list out there of things we should gather? Because I know you charge by the hour.
Fun fact, I actually don't. I charge my statements on a fixed fee basis, and that is a huge reason why, is I want to make sure that there's still good communication and we get it done right, without that ticking clock in the back of your head. But to answer your primary question, we do, once you engage with our office, we've got a bio sheet is what we call it, but it's only like 4 pages. It's 2 pages front and back, because I think a lot of attorneys will give you an entire booklet that you have to fill out, and that's very daunting. We try not to do that, and so if you fill that out, and then on the back, we have the primary questions that you need to start thinking about. And if you can get good answers answers to those questions, then the process goes a lot smoother. Also, we give a list of asset documents that we need to gather, that we'd like for you to gather before our first meeting. And we give examples of everything. And hey, we need these statements, we need this information for your financial advisor, we need this information for your insurance carrier. And so we provide all of that before the first meeting so that hopefully we can come in and be prepared. I had a client that I just met with the other day, and they were so detailed that our meeting was about 15 minutes. So that's always fun and nice, but that's not reality.
Okay, great. Next question, yes ma'am.
The question I have is, the person did have a trust, but like I said, and they had retirement that they were receiving from investments. How long, or is there a time frame on how long the trustee has to get that out of the financial institution, or?
If the person passes?
Yes, the person has passed.
Cheryl, can you answer that? She said the financial, if the person passes and they're drawing from an IRA.
Right, IRA, so they would give you their RMD, and like I say, but every year, but now they're receiving.
But does the family have a certain amount of time? Do they inherit it? They inherit it, do they have a certain amount of time?
Yeah, from my perspective, there's not necessarily a specific time frame from your trust. If your trust has requirements and your trust states how quickly things need to be distributed, then that is customizable. That's something you can put in your trust. Now, with respect to retirement accounts, there are some time frames. It depends on if you're already taking RMDs. If you're not, there's basically like a 10-year period that you can work in. The beneficiaries can work in.
And they can't go in the trust until, right? I mean, there's certain things that aren't in the trust until you pass, then it can go to the trust.
Yes, so getting into the weeds a little bit, with retirement accounts, you really don't want to name the trust as your beneficiary unless you have a lot of family drama, and there are overwhelming reasons to put your retirement account in the trust. Because it's a really bad tax result. You want to name individuals on your retirement accounts, and then that would be subject, if they're the beneficiaries, then it goes directly to them and becomes an inherited
But
IRA.
I think your question is, do they have to, how's it gonna affect them financially, right? Do they have to take it both?
The trustee, will it affect them if they don't?
No, it's, I mean, and again, she correct me if I'm wrong, but you have the estate of the deceased, and then you have the trust, right? And the trust is instructed, or trustee is instructed to do certain things by the trust. Unfortunately, we have this thing called the IRS and the tax system, which we also have to manage, and I was gonna ask if you could maybe help people understand the timing of the decedent's final tax return filing, as well as it might relate to R&Ds. The required minimum distributions, unfortunately, will need to be distributed within a time, so your trustee does need to be aware of some of these things, which, you know, they are, they'll be in contact with people about things. But the trustee is generally not held liable personally, but the trust might have the penalty that's paid, and the trustee is acting as a fiduciary for other trust beneficiaries. So it's not something you want to be like, oh, I don't care if it's about me, which I don't think most people would be, right? But again, being awareness. But I'm curious if you would remind people the dates that they need to know on those tax filings.
Yeah, the trust, yeah. Now, you need to file the final income tax return, which will be April 15th, you know. That's the way.
So it wouldn't be
Although
until
they
they file.
February or March, you'll have another year income tax return to do. And that, you need to be aware of that. And then on the required minimum distributions from the IRAs or from the 401ks, I would check with the, if it's at Fidelity Investments or wherever it is, I would check with the brokerage account that has those, and they will inform you of that.
So you inform them of the death, of the passing, and then they send out needed
Yeah,
documentation.
we would review the accounts, determine what's needed, and we would help you make those decisions and figure it out. Again, we need legal paperwork to know who it goes to and where and so forth, but at the end of the day, we will facilitate and help you with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have two questions. One is on the Roth. When they first came out with them, it was very, if you didn't have the beneficiary exactly a certain way, it negated it. Is that still the case?
I believe what you're referring
Did
to
you hear
is.
for the Roth IRA?
Yeah, I believe you're referring to retirement accounts have beneficiaries, right? If you have a retirement account, you have a beneficiary. And if you leave the beneficiary to a trust, it's very tax inefficient. There used to be this thing called a see-through provision within estate planning where we could see through the trust document to see the ending beneficiary that was specifically stated on an account. And by way of that, be able to move the assets into a trust with a stated beneficiary, at which point the distribution would be taxed to the beneficiary and not taxed to the trust, which is highly inefficient. There have been some law changes around that, so I would certainly say it's something that you need to look at. But I still believe the ending outcome is possible, but I think it's ineffective, because what they have done now is used to, we had a thing called a stretch IRA technique, when you pass away, you leave assets to an heir and stretch it out over their lifetime. So you take it out like 30 years, right? Which obviously means the money can still grow less than distributions that are coming out. Now, we pretty much have to make distributions by the end of the 10th year. And whether or not we have to take a distribution every year equitably across that 10 years or all in the 10th year has to do with when or how old the decedent was when they passed away. So some of the see-through provisions on the trust and the stretch IRA techniques have changed because they limited the amount of time that you have to now get assets out of an IRA. But I want to echo what Bria said. There are times where it does make sense to leave assets in trust, because what a trust does, the will does not do, is that a trust allows you to control things beyond the grave. You actually have an asset that's being managed by the trust or trustees to the benefit of something. If I have children or family members who need that, whether they're incapacitated, incapable, or just make really poor decisions, or they're too young, then at the end of the day, I might want those assets to be managed by someone who can steward over them better than they can, so that the ultimate outcome is what actually happens, right? And so that's why it's important to review these documents. Those changes you're referring to, by the way, have happened in the last 4 years, and they will continue to, which is why you need to meet with your estate planner at least every 2 years, because we have this thing called a congressional election that happens every 2 years, the Senate and House change, laws get passed,
And they
bills
change,
and
right?
stuff, all kinds of stuff in it, right? So
The only thing constant is change, right?
exactly.
And your second question?
I have another one on that.
Hold the mic right here so they can hear you on the tape.
The beneficiary, before you had to have the beneficiary and not in the trust. Is that still the case?
In most cases, that is going to be the format that your estate plan, I mean, like, out of 100 trusts, 99 of them will be that way. I'll have one that will leave the assets to the trust. And it's because there's some existential reason for why it needs to be someone other than the direct beneficiary. And even then, there's some other planning techniques that may be available to avoid that.
On mineral rights, they're small, but I want my kids to get them. It took 30 years to get my name on something because the land was owned over 100 years ago. How do you get to these these companies? Because they don't answer the phone and they don't send out any information. How do you get that done?
First, you hit your head against the wall for a while.
Single land man, right?
Yeah. No, the mineral rights are actually really tricky. There's a couple of different ways. We do have clients that actually just engage our office to bug the operating companies or the producers, and that honestly that can get kind of expensive. And so you do have to just kind of bug them a lot and send letters. Usually email or actual mail is the easiest way to communicate with them. But yes, mineral rights are tricky because a lot of people don't actually transfer them. A lot of people don't actually put them in a trust. And so then you have multiple generations that haven't been probated, and the minerals are supposed to be owned by this person, but they're in great-grandpa's name still. And there are some ways that we can deal with that. There's potentially an affidavit of heirship that the producers might be willing to accept, or we can kind of clump all of those deaths together
and do what's called a quiet title action. It's time consuming, it's a little costly, but ultimately those are the only options to clean it up.
So it's small, it's really not worth it, is it?
I have a lot of clients, sometimes my advice is, hey, if it's not actually producing a check, then let's record it, let's make sure that your family knows it's there. And if they strike oil and the checks start coming in and the producers say, hey, we need somebody to give this big check to, we can use that big check to do the probates.
Very good, okay. Other questions?
If the mineral rights are connected with a property that you own, is there a problem?
If the mineral rights
Yeah, or with the property that you own. You own the property and the mineral rights are on that.
are
property.
underneath it, that's actually a lot easier to deal with. That is very uncommon these days, because most people that have the property reserve the mineral rights when they sold the surface. But if you actually have the surface interest and you have the minerals together, that means that it's not severed and it's cleaner. And so doing a simple deed to transfer that into the trust, you can use that and just cover everything all at one time.
Any question over here?
Mine was just a comment, basically, we're talking about how to get started talking to family and holidays and all. I would suggest you can start with a family health history, as there's a lot of genetic information available now. And you can go there because that's really important to have. And you know, that oral history is usually the older folks, and you want to get that from them. And that can slide into things about when I die, kind of ideas.
Great idea. Great, that is an excellent idea, to start about the history of the health of the family dynamics. Yes, Sharon?
I have a trust and I've had it for several years, and I've had several different household insurances during those years. And I was looking at a new house insurance, and they asked me for the trust documents. And I asked them why they would need trust documents for just a simple insurance on my house. And they said, because the house is in the trust, if the insurance is not in the trust, then then there could be some loopholes where they would not pay a claim.
Yeah, so, just as a total secondary thing, we actually have a sister company called First Harvest Insurance that does insurance for most of our clients. And the issue that you have in this situation is that you cannot insure something you don't have ownership in. And so if your insurance is in your personal name and then your house is in the name of your trust, technically you don't own the house, the trust owns the house. I would tell you that's also probably not gonna hold up if it ever gets put somewhere, because most times it's a revocable living trust and you are the trustee and the beneficiary. But the insurance company does need to know that you have, your home is in a trust, and you do need to have the trust listed on the insurance policy as an additional insured, and that will resolve that problem. And the insurance carrier may require a copy of that, the basic, what do you call it? Drawing a blank at the moment, but your trust agreement or your summary trust provisions, usually like 2 pages, they might ask for that, so they make sure to have the name correct or the memo of the trust. Yeah. It wouldn't be abnormal, they do have a right to ask for that document, right? But it's really just an effort to make sure it's done correctly.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, this is just a question that was on your picture. The pros and cons of prepaying for a premium. What are the pros and cons? Because
Well, I think one of the first reasons that people prearrange is it locks in today's price, so that if I plan my funeral in advance with a local funeral home, whatever the price is today, and we use an annuity or a life insurance policy or a funeral home trust, you are locking it in at today's price, so that when death occurs 20, 30 years from now, your family doesn't have to pay for any additional expense. So I'm cautious of always saying this.
The goods and the services that are under the rooftop of a funeral home, those are the items that you lock in. And so the family, they're saying that life insurance policy or the annuity policy or the funeral home trust is going to grow in value over time to offset the cost of goods and services or inflation over time. So I have folks that they prearranged at $3,000 30 years ago. Today, that same funeral might cost $10,000 to $12,000. So that's one advantage. Another advantage is also what we've talked a lot about is the emotional time saving that's required. So you're not spending all of your time when death occurs, and the family knows what you want.
Is the product you're using to prearrange it, if it's gotten a lot more than what your expense is really going to be, do you get that back? The reason I'm asking, I did this for my father several years ago, and the product then was, well, you know, you just had to use it, and you couldn't even give it away to anything. So has that changed now in the products they use?
Well, most of the products today, there is a small increase in how they grow in value. Many of these funeral homes today are absorbing some of the costs.
Some of the costs, but
yeah,
you know, in that case, there was money left over, but I couldn't even give it to a church.
Yeah.
There's some people leaving, so can we do our drawing? Who brought a guest with them? Okay. So did you fill out the little gold card? Okay, and they can, let me go. Okay, they can get that. And we'll draw that, have a gift card. So now you can continue on with the question. I would say a pro for me is it's a great gift to the adult child.
But if you have already insurance that would pay for it at the end, I mean, I already have.
Yeah, so if you have a large insurance policy,
that's going to take care of that.
You can use those funds for it.
And do you have a gift card? It's in the folder. A little brown bag.
Okay.
Okay. This is Rose. Rose? Okay. She's the winner of our gift certificate. Thank you for bringing friends and family. That is awesome. That's awesome. And they do have a vehicle too. You might describe it where you don't have to do any funeral arrangements, but you have.
Oh yeah, you can have a pocket full of money and assign it because it is a turnkey product. In other words, you assign all of the value of a life insurance policy to a funeral home, and then what is used at the time of death is paid to that locally owned funeral home. But if there's a surplus left over, it goes to the next of kin or the beneficiary.
Okay. Yeah, that would be worth it.
Okay, so we're going to break, and you can go out and you can talk with some of them as some of you are leaving, and then we're going to be bringing in for the Lunch and Learn. If you signed in for the Lunch and Learn, we welcome you to of course, stay. We would love that. Actually, I think if this is everybody, we're good to go. But they're going to be bringing in the food. If we can reach out there and have them come up. Also, what you have in your list here is to mark your calendar. There is a handout here that talks about our two. It's not here. Come on here. Oh, here it is. Please do your feedback for us, please. But here is upcoming seminars, marking your calendar for November. It is time for new holiday traditions. And then the healthy wellness topic will be on tips on wellness and longevity. Ashley Euler will be here speaking to us. So you do have to register. You do have to register for the lunch and learn. Okay, it's very important that we have that registered. So please fill out your feedback forms and feel free to come up and ask questions of the people, of our sponsors. We're here for you for the next 15 minutes. So then we'll start with, is Miss Chris here? Yeah. Okay, there she is. So we'll be moving into Chris at around 11:45.